Alrighty, so we've talked about being as prepared as possible for the career fair and having a resume ready. So, what goes into a resume? Why do you need a resume? So, first and foremost, you need a resume to help you get an interview. This is how they learn about you, they learn about whether you're a good fit. And then the second part is to prepare you for an interview. It helps when you're doing taking inventory of what experiences you've had, what projects you've worked on, what skills do you have, what technical skills have you built, in order to then be able to pull on those experiences during an interview. It'll help remind you sometimes when you haven't done something or worked on it for a little bit, you forget the details. And so reviewing the resume, creating the resume will help you in reminding you. And also, it's to build your confidence. I see a lot with students that you don't realize certain experiences that you have count as experiences. Class projects that you've worked on, projects that you've worked on in student organizations, personal projects that you have decided to take on yourself, or ways that you've decided to learn a new skill on your own. These all count as experiences that you can put on your resume. It doesn't have to be something you've been paid for, it doesn't have to be something that's with an official organization. All of these count as experiences that you can put on your resume. I find, especially with engineering students, you all have so many different ways of gaining experience. So I want you to really know that. I know I see a lot of transfer students sometimes thinking that they don't have experience, but you do. There's a reason that you got into the School of Engineering at UCLA. So give yourself that credit. That's the main thing I keep telling students. Give yourself the credit. You did that work. Show us what you did. Okay, and so how to do that? So Will.
Yes. Yes. So again, the purpose of the resume, if you can just keep clicking there, Denny, thank you, is to get the interview, right? There's a little cartoon there, where he shows up and, Miss Peterson will be with you as soon as she goes through a few other resumes. And there's like a pile of resumes blocking the door, right? So, there's, on average, about 250 resumes for corporate job opening. And again, these are kind of national statistics, not specific to engineering internships or anything. And then, typically, depending on the bandwidth of the hiring organization, between 4 to 6 people get an interview. And then, of course, one person is typically hired for the position. So it is competitive, right? And that's why, we get this question all the time as a freshman, like, is it realistic for me to be competing? And the answer is, it just varies from student to student. It varies from experience to experience, and from company to company. So our motto is for all freshmen, all transfer students, regardless of experience level, to start the process. Yes, next slide, please.
And I do want to put it in there that applicant tracking systems are being used more and more at different companies, especially those large ones that engineering students often apply for. And so we are going to give you hints on how to make sure that your resume is applicant tracking system friendly so that your resume can be pushed out and pulled out of those 250, and how to make it so that they notice your resume, and not just they, but also the algorithm.
Yes.
So crafting a resume is an art, and so I'll let Will continue that too.
Yeah, so it's an art, not a science. A lot of students want a template, and they see an upperclassman and say, "Ooh, I just copied their resume. They got the job at Google, so I'm just gonna take their resume and copy it." Don't recommend that. It's an art. It's your professional story. It's your unique presentation of your trajectory, of your experience level. And it really should be personalized, right? It shouldn't look like everybody else's. That kind of, then you're stuck in the pile of 250, right? You want your resume to come to the top of the pile. It's obviously your marketing tool, and it really should be tailored to each specific position that you're applying to, because it basically is a response to the company. It's a response to the job description and the specific skills and experience that they're looking for in their candidates. And so really it's a one-page tailored summary of how you, in your unique way, best fit the position. And it is very difficult writing. I always use the example of when you were a freshman in high school and your English teacher told you to write a 5-page paper, you probably freaked out, and you use super big font and you're trying to scramble to fill the pages. But by the time you're a freshman in college, a 5-page paper, yeah, right, you can do that in a half hour probably, right? So filling the page will come with experience. And so I know at first a lot of you are like, well, I don't even have enough to fill one page, but trust me, you will. Hopefully after the next 20 minutes, we'll give you some tips on how to best fill that page.
So, what HR managers are looking for in candidates, mainly, won't be surprised, relevant experience, specific accomplishments, and that the resume is customized. We will show you how to do that because then it makes it obvious that you very specifically are applying for this position for a reason, but also it helps highlight why you're qualified for this position much easier for them very quickly. We will answer questions about resume as we go along. So I do just want to plug that I added in the chat the UCLA career guide to help you reference some resume tools. Specifically on page 40, you will find a sample that is great for engineering students because your technical skills are different than other students. And we want to make sure that we highlight those. So I will show you how in these next few slides. And also the Career Center has a new resource that is available 24/7. It's like your AI career assistant to help you in building your resume if you're interested or need a little bit of help. So we'll remember to trigger the poll.
Yes, I just triggered the poll. So this is a great time. I think, thanks for making those announcements, Denise. I think it was perfect timing for us to launch the poll here. So we want to get a feel for how many of you know the difference between a CV and a resume, how many of you have a resume already, how many of you have had your resume reviewed. So we're at about 89% completion on the poll. If you could, please try and finish that. I'm going to cover this slide actually, Denise, while the poll is completed. So if you could just click through this. Thank you. So the structure and order of a slide, for those of you who don't have a resume or never written a resume, you want to start with name and contact at the top, then your education, and this is in kind of chronological order from top to bottom. Technical skills is very, very critical and important to engineering resumes. Engineering is an applied science, so your technical skills are critical. Many of the job postings, many of the companies are going to tell you very flat out that these are the technical skills they're looking for. So you want to lead with technical skills. And then, of course, relevant experience, like Denise mentioned on the previous slide. And then more importantly, like Denise mentioned, are engineering projects. They're critical to have on your resume. And some students, they think, oh, well, I just worked on that on my own with my friends in my garage. That wasn't like, I never got paid to do that, or that wasn't an official project for a class. Or some students think the opposite. It's like, oh, that was just for class. It was part of my homework or my, midterm project or my final project. It's still an engineering project. And if that's the only relevant experience you have, or the most relevant experience you have that matches the job description, then by all means, you have to include engineering projects. And then, of course, there's additional work experience, and then leadership, extracurriculars, and additional skills go at the bottom of the resume. The key here, as you can see from the graphic, is you want that perfect overlap between what the job description lists as skills and experience and what you have in your own personal tool belt, in your own personal experiences, in your own technical experience. And anytime there's an overlap between the job description and what you have under your belt, then you want to include that. That is the perfect stuff to have on a resume. Denise, do you want to share the results of the poll?
Yes.
Thank you.
So it looks like we have half and half about CV and resume. Do you have a resume? Most of you do, but have you had it reviewed? Half of you did not. And so again, I want to encourage you to either attend Employer Resume Day or the Career Center drop-ins on a weekly basis, Tuesday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I've put the link in the chat, and we will help make sure that your resume is reviewed and ready to go. I do see a lot of questions coming through the Q&A, and I think that we will focus on those after we cover all of this. It may help with answering some of them, honestly.
Yes.
So let's continue through. So the do's and don'ts of resumes. You want to place the relevant information towards the top. Research shows that the eye naturally goes up, down, left to right. So we want the most important and relevant things to be at the top and to the left. When I say to the left, that has to do with your job position or get to the point sooner in your bullet point. But then also important and relevant information goes at the top, specifically like your technical skills. Like I mentioned, other resumes would have skills at the bottom. Yours should be right below education. We want them to know right away that you have these skills. Target your resume for each specific position, highlight your technical skills within your bullet points. I had a recruiter specifically for Microsoft tell student after student over and over that when she sees the technical skills on your resume, she wants to make a line to your bullet points. If you don't have an experience where you can highlight them in your bullet points, make sure you mention it in your relevant coursework, that you learned this skill even though you didn't get to apply it yet, but you do have the knowledge because you learned it in your UCLA coursework. Quantify your bullet points and show results as much as you can. Showcase your projects. Your personal projects are actually even more impressive to recruiters than you think. It shows a lot of initiative, so definitely highlight them. Don'ts. Please avoid grammatical errors. Don't use templates because, as I mentioned, the applicant tracking systems are not able to read those. Don't lie or exaggerate your experiences. They will find out. You don't need to put references upon request or your references at the bottom. When they ask for your references, you will know. And honestly, it saves you more space. And then if you have high school experiences that are relevant, after the middle of your sophomore year, you should start taking those off. If you are a first year student, it is totally okay to have experiences from high school because you don't have experiences from college yet. But after the middle of your sophomore year, you should be able to start taking those out because you'll at the very least have some class projects that you can have on your resume. So formatting. This is what your resume should look like. When you're formatting your contact information, it should be at the top. A fun fact I like to share with students is that it could be this same exact header on your cover letter, and then it looks like you have your own personal stationery and the two go together. So you want to make sure that you have the city and state. You don't need to include a full street address. They don't need to know exactly where you live. They just want to know locationally where you might be. Have a phone number. Make sure that you actually answer the voicemail of that phone number in case. Have an email that you check frequently, please. And your LinkedIn. If you are telling yourself that your LinkedIn is not ready, once you work on your resume, you can copy paste it into your LinkedIn. It helps with building your LinkedIn profile. Everything can go in your LinkedIn and build that as soon as possible. We do have other presentations about LinkedIn for the Career Center that we can cover later. When it comes to the education section, this is how you'll want to format it. You want to have UCLA at the top, so impressive again, and then your degree right below. Expected right here on the right, it shows, so you're not showing when you started and when you're going to end. You just want to show when you have a degree, when you're getting your degree. Whether it takes you 3 years or 5 years, that doesn't matter as much because you'll at the end of the day have a degree from UCLA. So we just want to highlight when you're expected to graduate. If your GPA is above a 3.0 is when we typically recommend having it on your resume. You can also include honors, relevant coursework, like I mentioned, and activities. Activities, if you have activities under education, this should be a very brief show of what activities you might be involved in. If you want to go into more detail and you have projects through those activities, put them later down in your resume under experience, okay? And then for our transfer students, this is how you can format your previous institution. You can have the name of the institution, the type of degree you earned, and when you got it. It's a very quick and easy way, and you can include relevant coursework in there too if you're interested, the GPA if you're interested, but try not to let it take up too much space because we want your experiences to take up the most space on your resume. Next, we're going to talk about your technical skills. So like I mentioned, for you, they go directly underneath education. These, you can organize them by computer, machines, labs, and then I typically recommend that you separate them by commas. Some students put them in little like fancy things. It doesn't, you don't need to because you're going to want to worry about space too. And this is actually kind of an example that I like to show students. Notice how it says Microsoft Office first. Personally, I think that it's almost obvious that anyone will be experienced in Microsoft Office. So like I mentioned, with the attention being, your eye naturally goes up, down, left to right, I would encourage you to move Microsoft Office to the right, all the way to the right, because these other skills are a lot more unique and impressive and most likely more relevant to the positions you're applying for. So do consider these. And again, like I mentioned, there is a sample on page 40 of the UCLA Career Guide that will help you with showing even more examples. Next, we go into experience. Your experience can be called a lot of different things. The nice thing is that you can break it down by different headers. It could be research, it can be projects, it could be engineering projects. I know there was a question of what makes something an engineering project versus not. Whether you used engineering skills or not is what makes it an engineering project. You can, I know the Microsoft recruiter said, like, if you have personal projects, make that their own header, because then that really differentiates and shows your own initiative. You can have relevant experience, you can have additional experience. A lot of times students kind of break it down by work experience and then project. And they think that work experience is what they got paid for. And then they have their projects. But a lot of times these things can be the same. So let's say you're coding. One is an internship and one is a project. You can have relevant experience and then have the two under the same header. So think about it in that way. And that's where targeting your resume will come in, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But your headings can change depending on who you might be showing your resume to, what you might want to be highlighting. Knowing you brilliant Bruins, you have multiple different kinds of resumes that you can have. Yes. So you can highlight different kinds of skills in different ways. So key tips in building your strong bullet points are that you want to start with action verbs. You will find them on page 26 and 27 of the career guide. You want to use keywords. Like I mentioned, the applicant tracking system really picks up on these keywords and your skills. So like Will mentioned before, if a job description very distinctly is saying, we want you to have this skill, you want to make sure it's in your resume so that if the applicant tracking system is searching for it, it will find it. And then include results and quantify whenever possible. We know that that's not always possible. And so just try if you can. And have around 3 to 4 bullet points per experience. Try to keep them to one line. And it's okay, depending on certain experiences, you might have more to say versus less to say. Just try to keep consistent. So this is the same bullet points, just kind of identifying. So notice how develop, apply, analyze. These are all different action verbs. You want a variety. You never want to repeat the same first word of every bullet point. And then I'm just going to look over the first bullet point. So develop world's smallest underwater camera system capable of streaming and recording super hydrophobic surfaces under 20 meters of water for at least 2 hours. Okay, so you want your bullet point to say what you did, how you did it, give details, and if there were results. So what you did is that you developed the smallest underwater camera. How? By recording. And then what happened, it was under 20 meters of water for at least 2 hours. This shows us the full spectrum of how you use your skills. So how to target your resume. So your skills and their need is where you want to connect. So review the job description like Will has mentioned several times. Read the specific skills and quantifications and the job responsibilities. Underline those words and phrases and that match your background. I personally have been known to kind of literally print it out and annotate it, highlight certain things, or remind myself. So this is what the next bullet point is: take an inventory of your experiences. How and where have you applied these skills? So when I was applying for jobs, I would print out the job description or annotate it digitally, and then remind myself of like, oh, I did something like this in this project, or I did something like this in this previous position that I had. And then it helps you with also realizing like, okay, so I need to better identify these things on my resume, or these are some great things that I can talk about in my cover letter. So this will help with how to target your resume. And use the keywords from the job posting, because those are the keywords that they're going to be searching for. So if they are looking for you to be collaborative and work in teams, you want to highlight that you have worked in a team of 5 and that you took on a specific role within that team. You want to show that you, if they're looking for you to have C++ or certain machining skills, you want to definitely use those words because it will come out in the applicant tracking system. I know that I went through this really quickly. I just wanted to make sure that we had enough time because it looks like we have a lot of questions. And so I will say, sorry for speaking through, but I hope that it was helpful. And now we'll definitely take the time to answer all of your questions.
Yeah, I actually answered a lot of them already in writing, Denise, and you covered a lot of them. So thank you for getting through the slides. The first one that I think I want to address in a little more detail is there was a question, I think it was probably from a CS student, should we include our GitHub or personal websites
Yes,
on the resume? And I think it's a great question. So I want to make sure I address it with everybody live in the video. In that, yes. LinkedIn is essentially an online CV, right? So we asked the poll, and many of you didn't know the difference between a CV. And so resumes typically, again, what like we keep reiterating, is a one-page executive summary of how you best respond to the position, how you best match the position, right? I know we sound like a broken record here, but we really want to stress that. A CV is where you get to put everything you've ever done. Your publications, your research projects, your presentations, your awards, and a CV is obviously way longer than one page. And so what we recommend, and again, this is not a LinkedIn workshop, but when you do the LinkedIn workshop or watch our video of it, you'll see that you can put all of those things on LinkedIn. You can put your GitHub and put links to your projects and your personal website and any online portfolios you have of videos of your projects that you built and designed. All of that absolutely should be part of your LinkedIn, your online profile. The question though is on a one page, right, where you have such limited space, can you put all of those links on one page on your resume? And the answer, I would say, is typically no. You kind of have to choose one, right? Are you going to do your GitHub or your LinkedIn, or choose your LinkedIn and then have your GitHub on your LinkedIn so that, it's kind of like they eventually click to it. Danita, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually take a slightly different approach. As long as you have room, you can add one more line. Don't go crazy with the links. If there are 2 links, then you can format them to be directly underneath your city and state and all of that. But it all depends on the room that you have on your resume. I think I saw a question, yes, your resume should only be 1 page. I was told by a previous boss, she's like, if I have more experience than you and I can make it work, you definitely should make it work. And that's what makes you really focus on what is relevant, what are they looking for, and what do I want to highlight? Because oftentimes there are certain parts in your experience that are great, they're just not relevant. I do really quickly I saw a question, colorful and creative resumes. As far as I've been told, this is still a thing that applicant tracking systems, and you never know what company is using what applicant tracking system. So steer clear of color and creative. Your resumes should definitely not have your photo on them. But keep that in mind because we want to make sure that the applicant tracking system can actually read your resume. And oftentimes, though they are being updated, color may not come through. If you are emailing someone a resume or you are directly giving it to them, absolutely have as much fun as you want. But when you are applying online, you just have to be a little more cautious because of those tracking systems and they don't recognize that.
Yeah, do you mind if I do another question, Denise?
Yeah, go for it.
Is it always necessary to have a cover letter? So to be clear, we did not discuss cover letter in this workshop because typically at a career fair, cover letter is not part of the career fair. And so cover letter is typically something you upload or email to a recruiter, or you upload to an online application site. And so that's not something you typically need at a career fair. So I wanted to make sure we answered that question. Go ahead.
I do want to remind everyone again that you will receive all of these materials if you fill in the attendance survey. So I'm sending it again.
Yes.
Make sure that you fill it out and you will receive everything that we are covering.
Yeah. There are a couple questions regarding high school material, and I know Denise, you briefly um, answered that. And so for especially for first year students, and this applies to community college transfer students also, they ask the same question: should I include my community college experience, or am I limited to only my UCLA undergraduate experience? And I think my answer is always it depends. What you want to do is put experiences on your one-page resume that respond to the job description. So if the only relevant experience you have, let's say they're asking for C++ programming, and the only C++ programming you have done, or HTML is a better example, and the only HTML you have done was back in high school when you did that AP computer science class, or that website design class that you did. And so it's about relevancy. Obviously, you want to have more current experiences, and so the more current ones are during your undergraduate years. But sometimes, especially like for me, if I were to, let's say, change careers mid-career right now, I have 20 years of experience that I'm trying to squeeze onto one page, right? Some of my experience is not going to be within the last year, right? It might be 3 or 4 years older. And so it's all about the relevancy. And so, yes, I think you can have high school experiences if it's relevant to the job description. Another thing that was asked is references. Do references need to be included on a resume? And Denise, I'm sure you'll chime in. My position is on one page. If you don't have space, that's probably something you can easily cut out. It's probably best to have hands-on engineering technical experience on the resume than than it's taking space with references, especially because a lot of the online applications now require you to submit references online.
I have been answering some of them myself. As a freshman, is it okay to put high school GPA and major projects or clubs on my resume? I think we'll kind of covered it.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
I was going to say the GPA question is something that we kind of haven't addressed specifically, and that comes up a lot, especially for transfer students in high school. If it's your first quarter on campus, you don't have a UCLA GPA yet, right? So the only GPA you have is your transfer institution or your high school. But after a quarter, so after fall quarter, you will have a UCLA GPA, and you should include your UCLA cumulative GPA. Until you finish the quarter, then it's okay to have your transfer institution or your high school GPA. All right, some other questions here. Oh, somebody asked, what is a reference? A reference is usually when you apply, is it's somebody you've worked with in the past who will, who the current employer may call to say, hey, tell me about Will Herrera. He says that he worked with you on that, on that summer internship project at whatever company. And basically it's somebody who can vouch for your skills, vouch for your professionalism, for your ability to do work. And so typically it's somebody you've worked with in the past who can speak well on your behalf, almost like a recommendation.
Yeah. So we do have a question. Sorry, what should we write about if we do not have many engineering related experiences or activities? You can write about anything. You can write about if you tutor, you can write about if you volunteer, you can write about if you've had personal projects that you've undertaken. And there is in the career guide that we've sent, there is a sample first year student resume that can also be helpful in figuring out what experiences you might be interested in highlighting when you haven't quite started yet.
There is a question, Denise, that I can't answer, but I think is important. They said they tried VMOC and it only allows us to review our resumes 10 times. What do we do if we run out of these checks? Like if we've maxed out our 10 resume reviews?
So I will say I'm pretty impressed that you already maxed them out. Typically 10 is a good amount to last for the entire year. Because a student will upload a resume and then get feedback and be able to edit their resume and not necessarily need to upload again unless like maybe 2 or 3 more times. So you have kind of maxed out for the year as far as I'm aware. I do encourage you to come to our drop-ins where we will give you unlimited resume feedback. But yeah, typically 10 times is plenty. Most users use about 3. So that's okay. You can email the Career Center if you're interested to see if there is an option to get more. But I think your best bet is just to come during drop-ins.
Yeah. There's another great question I'd like to address, and then maybe we can take one or two more questions, Denise, and we can cover the last slides, the like next steps and resources slides. But I think this is a great question to address, which is it okay if we don't match everything that they're looking for? And that's an awesome question. And I want to address it in several ways. Number one, obviously, the whole point of this resume is for you to paint yourself, to present yourself, to market and brand yourself as the most qualified applicant for this position, right? And you know, Denise mentioned this. You know, I'd like to play what I call the matching game, where I'll ask the student, "What are you using this resume for?" Okay, let me see the job description, and we highlight. If there's 10 things on the job description, 10 technical skills or technical experiences that they're looking for in their candidates, and then I read the resume and there's only one thing that matches those 10 things on the resume, then you've just presented a resume that makes you look unqualified for the position, right? Now, having said that, will every resume have a 100% match with what's on the job description? Of course not, right? There is no perfect candidate out there. You're just trying to paint yourself as the most qualified candidate for the position. And so, you know, would a company in an ideal world love to have somebody who matches every single thing that they're looking for? Of course they would. But is that reality? Reality is no. What they're looking for is who is the best fit, the best match, who has the most. And so your job is, you know, you're not going to make things up. You're not going to lie. Your job is to write that one-page resume in a way that you are putting your best foot forward, right? You're saying, this is how how my personal story, my professional career path best matches the description. Now, the second half of that answer is, especially if you're a freshman or a young, inexperienced student, you're like, I don't have anything yet, Will. What do I do? Start looking at these job descriptions. Get on LinkedIn, get on Handshake, start reading what the target is. And if you're a freshman, guess what? This is an advantage because you have 3.5 years to get those experiences, right? To work on those engineering projects. If they say they want MATLAB, then go learn MATLAB. If they say they want, you know, some other software, go learn the software. So the earlier you know what they're looking for, the more time you have to build those skills.
And last, I will answer this one question really quickly. For first year students with no experience that are looking to find positions, Handshake is a really great way for you to filter out by employers that are specifically looking to hire first years. Typically in engineering, first and second years are not as recruited as heavily because they're waiting for you to have certain skills that you will gain in your first year of coursework. But it is possible that there are certain employers that have programs specifically geared to first year students. Startups are eager to get any kind of student. And so keep an eye out. And the nice thing about Handshake is that we force them to answer these questions. And so you can specifically see if a position or an employer is looking to hire you. And then it will help with being able to find which ones are and focusing on those.
I love that answer, Denise. And if you don't mind, I'd like to add one other piece to it. I know Denise can't say this because she's employed by the Career Center and she could get in trouble by saying this, but guess what? I'm not, so I will say it. Applying to companies is very similar to applying to college. You have dream companies, target companies, and safety companies. Okay. And of course, as a UCLA engineer, everybody wants to work at Google. Everybody wants to work at Facebook. That's awesome. You should be shooting for the stars. You should, you know, be shooting for a dream company. But if you're under the impression that your very first internship is going to be at Google, you know, I think you need to start somewhere else. You need to be a little more realistic. There are plenty of other engineering firms that nobody's ever heard of that are actively recruiting at UCLA Engineering and would love to have a freshman student or a less experienced student. So different companies have different recruitment cycles and they're looking for they have different competitive. And it's just like applicant pool, right? Facebook has the luxury of having, probably 5,000 applicants for 30 positions. And so they can say, I'm not going to look at anybody that doesn't have a 3.5 GPA or higher, right? I'm only going to hire the best of the best, the top of the top. Well, guess what? They're done by December break. And then there's other companies that come, in winter quarter or spring quarter. And so the recruitment cycle is year round. And I want to tell those freshman students, you should absolutely be strategic and apply to companies that are less applied to, that nobody's ever heard of, because your chances will absolutely be higher. And they would love to have a UCLA engineering student intern at their company. Okay, we should probably get to the last slides, Denise. Yeah? Okay, cool. So if you could
take it away.
Yep. So in closing, review our goals for your first career fair, right? Essential to practice and develop these skills. Many of you are probably sitting there overwhelmed with the amount of information that we just given you. And you're like, oh my God, Will, you just gave me so much homework that I need to do between now and the career fair. And that's okay. Remember, you need to just start early. Take it one baby step at a time, familiarize yourself with the process, and practice, practice, practice. You will get better at this. And even if you show up your first time and you bomb at your first career fair, it's okay. You're going to learn how the game is played. You're going to learn the rules of engagement, and you're going to learn how to leave a good first impression. And even if your only outcome is to build your professional network, meet these recruiters, connect with them on LinkedIn, get business cards, get contact information, that is a huge win for your first career fair. Next slide, please. So next steps, this is your homework. Actually, can we do one bullet at a time, Denise? Sorry, I didn't want to overwhelm them. Yeah, it's kind of scary to see 12 bullets at one time. So first, make a list of the companies you want to visit. Again, there's 50 plus companies, and don't choose only the dream companies, right? I mean, yeah, of course you should go talk to Facebook if that's your dream company, but don't only talk to your dream companies, right? Select some of those target companies, some of those safety companies that nobody's ever heard of. Next bullet. So do your research, make a list of the companies you want to talk to. Research those companies like Denise said in the presentation, right? Learn what they're looking for. Look at the job postings. Read that survey, right, that they answered. Are they looking for transfer students? Are they looking for freshman students? Will they take somebody who's less experienced? Will they hire international students? These are all things that you can find out before the career fair. Next bullet, please. Visit the Career Center YouTube channel and watch the resume workshop. If you have not received any feedback on your resume yet, then you should watch the resume workshop. If you and learn how to do it, read the career guide that we posted in the chat, and then start getting some feedback, maybe with some peer advisors, and we'll talk about that in resources in a couple slides. And then before you use your 10 VMOC feedback, passes, maybe you should get some feedback from some peers. Some peer advisors or some Career Center staff. Next slide, next bullet, please. Tailor your resumes, like we've, I think ad nauseum, we've driven that point home. Next slide, next bullet. Get your resume reviewed on VMOC. Again, this should probably be like third level after you've had some peers look at it, right? You don't want to use all 10 of your slots, in a week. Next. Practice your elevator pitch. I highly recommend you video record yourself. And watch that video, have your roommate do it, set it up on a tripod if you have it, and practice your elevator pitch and try and tailor it to the different companies you're going to talk to. Next. And then update your LinkedIn page. I know that's a lot. If you don't have a LinkedIn page, then, creating one from scratch is going to be a little bit of a heavy lift. But if you have one already, just maybe clean it up. You can go onto the YouTube channel for the Career Center, and I believe they have some LinkedIn workshops. I know we have a LinkedIn workshop video on our undergraduate internship program YouTube channel. So update your LinkedIn account. Next. And of course, Google yourself. Know what's on your social media. They will Google you before they interview you. They will not just bring you in for an interview. They will look at your social media and say, hey, what kind of website, what kind of virtual presence, online presence does this candidate have? And then obviously if you have some stuff on there that you're not, you don't want to highlight, then you probably want to take that down. And last but not least, I think there's one more bullet. Yeah. If all of this was just so overwhelming and it's too much to do in 90 minutes or in a week before the next career fair, then understand, especially for the freshman students, you have time. There's a whole 10-week Engineering 23 course where we go into each of these pieces in detail over 10 weeks. So we've done like the tip of the iceberg that you see above the water. There's a whole, landmass under the water that we couldn't cover today in 90 minutes, and that we go into depth in the Engineering 23 class. So I want to do a shameless plug for that Engineering 23 course that it's offered every quarter, fall, winter, and spring. And I think that's it, right? And then resources, Denise? Yep. You want to talk about these resources, Denise?
Sorry, I was responding to some questions.
Oh, okay.
So yes, if you do not have a social media accounts, they are totally fine. It's actually probably going to work in your favor, but do consider having a LinkedIn page, and visit the UCLA Career Center YouTube to see how you can build your LinkedIn and how you can use it to find recruiters, to find alums who are in the field, etc. Some online resources that you all have access to for free, from just having an account. You have a Handshake account. I'm assuming you all have it because you were able to find this webinar link and we dug it deep in there. So Handshake is really great, and under the resources tab, which you will find by pressing at the top right Career Center, and then by appointments there's resources. You will find all of these there. So VMOC, as we've mentioned, is a great tool for building your resume. Parker Dewey, and then there's Forage too, which I don't see on this slide. They are two new resources that we have that help in gaining experiential learning opportunities. And so if you don't have those experiences to put on your resume, these are great ways to gain them. Parker Dewey are paid micro internships, so you are able to get paid and you do get to build skills, have experience. Maybe you're trying and you might be interested in a certain field, but you're not 100% sure yet and you kind of want to dip your toe. This is a great opportunity to do that. And then with Forage, they have projects. So employers post projects for you to gain skills and practice your skills, but also if you're interested, you can submit your projects to them and it can help greenlight your application if you're interested in applying for a position with that employer. Of course, our career guide that I shared with you, and then we have other resources. Going Global is a really great resource for international students. It helps with finding positions abroad as well as in the US, and breaks down like what kind of visa authorization you might need, all sorts of different information. And then Interview Stream is a really great tool for practicing your interviews. And then I just encourage you to look at all of these. Focus 2 and Life Values Inventory. These are some self-assessments. Vault is to help you with industry. UCLA One is very similar to LinkedIn, and it actually links to your LinkedIn. So you don't need to make two profiles. They link to one another, where you can find specifically UCLA alums who might be interested in mentoring you. And then I think we're good on this. Will.
Yeah, I want to definitely do a plug. I just saw something in the chat that says, hey, will you be having office hours this quarter? And so unfortunately, I'm a staff of one running two big school-wide programs, undergraduate research program and undergraduate internship program. So my time is very limited. I only offer really office hours for the courses, the Engineering 23 and the 24 course that I'm the instructor for. However, we've hired 4 peer advisors, senior students who have a ton of experience in both research and internship, and we offer peer advising. And so you can absolutely meet with them. It's almost 20 hours a week, all 10 weeks of the quarter. So there's a flyer here that is on our website, and I'll put our website on in the chat. If you or you can just Google Samuel Engineering undergraduate internship program, and you'll see it. The top QR code is to make an appointment. And then the bottom QR code is just for drop-in. So you can just click on that link, get in that Zoom, and just drop in for peer advising with one of our 4 peer advisors. If you meet with them and you're not satisfied and you feel like you need more expert response, they will refer you to me. And I do meet with students in rare occasions when our peer advisors cannot help our students. Having said that, 95% of the questions that you're going to bring to the table can be answered by our peer advisors. They have been trained. And so we haven't quite started our drop-in. So I see somebody said, hey, I tried drop-in, it didn't work. We haven't launched yet, unfortunately. So our plan is to launch, by Wednesday of this week. So you'll be getting an email from the undergraduate internship program saying we have launched peer advising. It is live. So unfortunately, it's not live yet, and that's why it didn't work. So sorry about that. In addition, Denise, you want to talk about Career Center advising that's available?
Yes. So we do have one-on-one appointments with counselors like myself available. We are posting them now every 2 weeks out. So if you go and schedule an appointment and you don't see any availability, please know it's not that we are booked for the rest of the year. We are just booked for the next 2 weeks. And so we used to post them 3 weeks out, but now you won't have to wait as long. And quick tidbit, fun fact, check on Fridays and the weekend. All counselors need to have their appointments posted by Friday at end of day. So you are most likely to find appointment availability on Fridays or during the weekend. They do book quickly, so keep that in mind, but we do provide a lot of appointments. And then if you're not able to find an appointment and you're interested in a quick resume or cover letter overview or review, or if you're interested in quick internship and job search strategies, you're welcome to come to our drop-ins that are available Tuesday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
All right, I think next slide and then we're done. So just
Yeah.
thank you so much to everybody for coming. I think at the peak we had like 120 something students, and we did get to record this, so we will be posting the video on the undergraduate internship program YouTube channel, which I've linked there. We also have a Facebook page, so please connect with us at Samueli URP. So we're posting a lot of our content on our Facebook page, and I know Denise, you also have a Career Center website and Facebook page. So we answered, I think, 79 questions. So we had a large audience. I'm so happy that all of you made it, and you all asked wonderful questions. So I just want to say thank you for coming. Closing remarks, Denise?
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you. It's really exciting to see some familiar names. So I'm glad that you all are joining us and using as many resources as possible. I hope that this helped prepare you, and feel free to reach out if we can help answer any other questions. You will be able to see more opportunities to connect with us, whether through drop-ins or appointments, or like I mentioned, employer resume days coming up and all of that great stuff. So thank you. And we will stay on for just a couple more minutes in case you need anything, but we will be closing up shop.
Yes, I think there's one more slide, right? And then I'll stop recording.
I think it was just thank you.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, stop recording.